Hello. For today's session, I'm going to be giving you an introduction to Neuland calligraphy using a bamboo pen. Like this one in here is cane from Spain, and my teacher Keith Adams cut it for me a few years ago, and it still works absolutely amazing. If you have never cut your own bamboo pens, you will find a link on my YouTube channel explaining briefly how to do it. But if you don't have anything at hand to get a bamboo pen ready, you can also use any of these tools in here. So this one is a good quality flat brush. The brand, I don't have it in here, but just a very good quality flat brush will work. Alternatively, you can use a speedball steel brush. You will find this online and you will see that there are different dimensions, so whichever you prefer to work with, or these two versions, and I think there is a third size as well, which is they are called automatic pens. So in any of these examples, in any of these options in here, all of these will work, and is basically all of these are different options for broad pens. So even if you had a small brows nib, 3 millimeters, it will work. Obviously, it's a lot smaller than these versions. So whatever is your tool for today, it's gonna work fine. We just need to build the blank guidelines in accordance to the width of the tool that you are using at the moment. Okay, so I'm gonna be using the bamboo, and I'll explain how to build the guidelines based on your pen. So in here you have an example of my blank guideline. You can go to my Instagram account and follow the link on my bio, and you will find a folder called calligraphy guide sheets, and in there is a set of different blank guide sheets for each calligraphy style, and this one belongs to Neuland. So how is this scale built? So the scale is built by multiplying by 3 the width of my bamboo pen. So my bamboo pen is nearly 10 millimeters wide, and so what I've done in here is I've created 3 widths of my bamboo pen with a small area in between. And so the scale is 3 and a bit in between each of them. No matter how big is your nib, if it's really big or really small, you will obtain the blank guidelines by doing the same, multiplying by 3 the width of your own nib and leaving a small gap in between them. And then you have the baseline and the cap high. This alphabet, it's only done in capital letters, so this space belongs to the cap high in here. Okay, so in this case, I'm using regular 100% copy paper, 80 GSM copy paper, and I'm gonna place it on top, and I can see through the lines underneath. Now I'm going to secure the guideline with a pin. And now that I have all of these, I'm gonna start. So to start, I'm going to talk about the conditions of this writing. So Neuland was a typeface originally designed by Rudolf Koch, and with the bamboo we are doing our calligraphic adaptation of the typographic design. And to do that, we are going to set a few conditions. So condition number 1, it's gonna be, let's talk about the inks before I'm going into it. So for today, I'm going to be mixing 2 inks. This one, the blue one, is liquid watercolors, and this one is walnut ink. And you can buy walnut ink online as well. You will probably find it called walnut crystals, and then you just mix it with water like instant coffee and obtain the ink. So I'm gonna be mixing the both together with the bamboo. So differences between the bamboo and other traditional calligraphic broad pens is that in this case, in here, I don't have a reservoir. So there is no space for me to be holding the ink. And I could build it. I could build a reservoir in here. But in this case, I'm not using it. And so what's going to happen is with this bamboo pen, I'm going to be running out of ink quite quickly. And this can be a good thing because it can let all the texture coming through the page. So I'm going to dip into the walnut ink and start setting up the conditions. So the first condition for this interpretation of Neuland is that my pen is only going to be sitting in two positions. And the first position is at 0 degrees. And 0 degrees means that it's parallel to the baseline that I have in here. So my pen, it's going to be completely flat, and I'm going to be moving the pen straight down without rotating the pen in any angle. So this position of my pen, flat, parallel to the baseline, and the cap high, it's going to be a 0 degree position. Now the second position, I'm going to be using the nib. It's going to be at 90 degrees. And 90 degrees means that my pen is going to be perpendicular to the baseline. So the position of my pen now, it's going to be completely perpendicular to the baseline. And I'm going to be moving horizontally like that. And with this movement, I will have this type of strokes. So that is the second condition, that my pen is going to be either at 90 or at 0 degrees. Now we have a vertical stroke and two horizontal strokes in here. What happens if the movement is now curvy? So what happens is that to do a curvy movement, I'm going to position the pen at 0, and I have to draw an invisible line in here between the initial point, which is not invisible anymore because I'm gonna be marking it for you to see. Between the initial point and the end point, the two positions are going to be aligned vertically. So I'm going to be moving either to the left and coming back at 0. Okay, so that would be an example for my letter C, for example. Again, at 0, moving to the right, moving to the left, and coming back vertically in the same point that I started. That's how I build a curvy movement. So my bamboo pen has not rotated in any point. Now, what if the curve is towards the other side? So obviously it's gonna be applied the same condition. So I'm starting flat and I'm moving towards the right and I'm finishing in the same point that I started in here. Okay, and if I change the color, it will be the same. So at flat and moving horizontally, and my bamboo doesn't rotate, so it stays flat along the way and finishes in the same point that I started. What happens if I have a curvy movement? Again, but this time it would be, for example, to create letter S. So to create letter S, I again will use the pen completely flat against the surface of the paper, and I'm going to be moving slightly to the left, straight, slightly to the left again, and with my pen constantly at 0 degrees, I'm obtaining this snaky shape for the letter S. What happens if I'm doing a diagonal shape? So the pen still moves at 0 degrees and it's going to go down and again at 0 degrees and moving down the stroke towards the right hand side. And if the movement of the diagonal is in the other way, obviously it's going to be the same. So from here, flat and going down. And next movement. And you see how the ink is running out really quickly, and this is actually a really nice factor because it's going to let us all the texture from the paper coming through the ink. In this case, I'm using a smooth paper, but if you use texture watercolor paper, this is going to be really beautiful. Now, how am I starting with the first letter forms? So the first letter form I'm going to start with is letter I. So for letter I, which is the easiest at this point with this style of alphabet, letter I is built with one single stroke from the top, from the cap high to the baseline, and trying to be as upright as possible. Okay, from the top to the bottom, and one single movement down. That's my capital I. Now I'm going to be writing letter L, capital L. I'm going to start in the same movement, completely flat at 0 degrees, and moving down as straight as possible. Stop. And from here, I'm going to set my next condition. So my first condition is the pen is either at 0 or at 90. And the second condition is that when a vertical stroke meets an horizontal stroke, they are going to be overlapping in the middle of the first movement. So that means that now when I do the second movement for this letter L, my horizontal stroke at 90 degrees, so my pen now is vertical, it's going to start inside in the center of the vertical stroke, and I'm going to be pushing to the right. Great. Now, next condition. So that's the third condition. Fourth condition is how much I'm going to the right. How long is this bar? So that condition is made out of like, we are going as far to the right as we are optically creating a square shape. In other words, means as tall with my bamboo pen is as wide this square is. So the same measurements for both sides. So in here for the L, the height is 1 unit of my bamboo and the width is another unit of my bamboo. And this is how I set the fourth condition in here. So when a vertical meets an horizontal, or the other way around, the second movement starts in the center of the first stroke. So in here the ductors, let me get this. First movement, and then inside, second movement. Great. Now, let's go into more letter forms. The next one, it's going to be a letter F. So letter F starts with a vertical movement. So I'm going up at 0, starting from the top, and as straight down as possible. Stop. And then I'm starting in the center of the first stroke, and I'm pushing towards the right hand side till I see a perfect square, so that the width of my bamboo is the same as my height. Now I'm going to create the second bar, and obviously I need to leave a space, the space that I was talking about in here when I was saying there is a small gap between the three widths. That small gap is what belongs now to the space between the bars of the F. So from here, let's put it here. Yeah, I'm going to create the second movement. So I'm placing the bamboo in the center of the first stroke, and I'm pushing to the right. And that is my letter F. And in here, obviously, almost you don't see the white because I messed around before to show you the width. So let's do it again. Straight movement from the top to the bottom. Stop. And then placing the bamboo in the middle, pushing to the right, square, one, starting in the middle again of the first vertical stroke and pushing to the right, second one. Okay, the two bars of the F are the same length. Obviously, seeing this example, you can imagine what's happening now with letter E. So with letter E, I'm starting at 0 degrees from top to bottom. And then I'm going to change color. You will see the gradient going on. Now I place the bamboo in the center of the first stroke and pushing to the right. Stop. Leave a small gap. Placing the bamboo, pushing to the right. Stop. Placing the bamboo, pushing to the right. Letter E. Yeah, we need to be careful that the counter spaces that are tiny in this occasion, in here, are more or less the same. So this will be like trial and error a few times with your tool and how much distance you have in here. But the counter space is really, really small. Now, up to here, we have 4 conditions. So the bamboo only flat at 0 or 90. Then the overlapping is always halfway inside the first stroke when an horizontal meets a vertical stroke or the other way around. So the overlapping is always half. And the third one, in the fourth one, is that we have perfect squares as a width. So in this case, for this letter E, the width of this letter form is 2 units, meaning the bamboo is 1 width and 2 widths. Okay? Now, how can we introduce variations within these conditions without breaking them? So, for example, one option will be what happens if I create the vertical stem in the same way, and now I decide that my horizontal bars are going to be super thin. So just one hairline of my bamboo, 2 and 3. Okay, I haven't broken any condition. Obviously, the shaping here is radically different because we have nearly like a monoline in the sense there is no contrast at all between verticals and horizontals, and in here we have a high contrast between the vertical stem and the super thin bars. So we haven't broken the conditions, and the look and feel just changed radically from something that is super solid to something that is high contrast. Option 2 for variations. So this is a good exercise for you to imagine how can you apply variations within the entire alphabet without breaking the conditions. So how this change will affect to letter A, letter B's, letter H, letter T's, everywhere. Okay, so another example is I'm using the pen vertically, and then I will start with the bar, first one. I'm going to go into the third bar straight away. And now with the space I have in the middle, I can decide to maybe just go with one width again. So option 1, it's also this option. So what happens now, I have a variation between no contrast at all and very thin in the middle. So this will only apply to some letters that have 3 bars. Okay, so what happens if I decide to do that in every other letter of the alphabet? two more variations. So this is a very good design exercise for understanding the relationship between the letter forms and how one action or one decision affects the entire family. Option 3. I place the pen and flat, up, up, up. And from here, I'm going to be overlapping in the middle, 1 square, 2 squares. And now I'm going to decide that the one in the middle is going to be built by 4 hairlines of my bamboo, or 3 in this case. It can be 3, it can be 4, depending how much space you leave between the bars. So this will be, again, another variation of the same conditions in here, okay? Let's do 2 more. Obviously, you are thinking, why we don't change the vertical stem and make it super, super thin? So yes, it is possible, obviously, as well, and we will be doing like an inverted, horizontally stressed letter form, where the verticals are very, very thin, and now all the thickness is coming from the horizontal. And this will be F, and this will be E. You will see sometimes in some logotypes like variations of letter E that actually just don't have any vertical stem at all. So that simply by having 3 arms like that inside a context of a word, this is gonna be very, very clear that this is a letter E. So it depends what you are doing and the context of this letter form. Last variation, you will see that there is some examples in unsealed writing where there is a lot of roundness into the letter form. So when we did letter C, I explained that the first movement and the last movement should be extending vertically in the same point, so that there is this straight vertical line for the initial and the ending point. With the unsealed writing, there is a lot of shapes that they start to get super, super round. There is this like Greek alphabet influence. So another variation of letter E will be creating a round shape like I did for my letter C. And in here, I'm going to go back inside, again in the center of the first movement, and I'm going to be pushing and aligning the movement to the top and to the exit movement. So this will be another variation for letter C. Now we have all these types of E's that I have done in here. All of them not breaking the conditions, and all of them affecting massively the look and feel of the entire alphabet if you were going to apply this condition in the rest of the 26 letters, okay? So this is a very good design exercise to think about how a simple decision affects everything else. Now let's keep going, and we have 3 more letters I want to do. So letter H. I talked in here about that the width of this E is 2 units of my bamboo pen. So now with letter H, the next letter form is going to be built out of 3 units. So the first movement, again, is a vertical stroke, top to bottom, stop. Now, the second movement is actually going to be my horizontal stroke in here. And so I have to visually find the center of this stroke optically. Okay, so in terms of height and in terms of width, I'm placing the bamboo pen in the middle, and I'm going to be pushing to the right. How much I'm going to be pushing to the right? Okay, so what I need to be optically estimating when I'm moving my pen is that This area in here is the overlapping section, half of the stroke. In here, I'm going to have a perfect square, same as in the other letter forms that I did. And on this side, I'm again going to be overlapping half. So I need to be estimating all this area for the overlapping. Now from here, I have this measure, so I know, let's change the color. I have this measure, so I know that from here I go up, and I know that I'm going to be overlapping half of the horizontal stroke, and you can see it coming through and finish. Now, when we are beginners, the way how to build this letter H is a good way to get the width right, is that, as I mentioned in here about the 2 units, I can make a mark for myself and mark in that way, and it's like, okay, my letter H is actually built out of 3 units. So if I'm not too sure how much I have to go there, a good way to start is, again, by doing this beforehand. So, okay, I'm gonna mark just for myself 1, 2, 2 and 3, and I know that this is gonna be the width of my letter form. So now I can go start at the top and moving down, and from here I'm gonna press in the center and push, and you see the texture coming through. And now the last movement is my vertical, and I have in here the notes, and I'm going down like that. And that's the 3 units of my letter H. Okay, the movements have to be straight. So in here I can see a little bit of a curve, but it shouldn't be. It should be like this one, completely straight. Okay, now let me change the paper, and we are going to do 2 more. So the next one is letter T, and the next one is letter, in the last one is letter J. So for letter T, this letter form is built up using, again, 3 units. So same as my letter H. So, okay. Same, we can do it by eye, or we can do it with the measure. So let's try by eye first. I'm gonna start with the horizontal stroke again, and I'm placing the bamboo pen at 90, and from here I'm gonna be going to the right, perfect square visually, second perfect square, and third. So visually I'm trying to get the width. You can see my stops in here with the bamboo pen, and this is what I actually love about using semi-transparent inks, that you can actually see very clear the movement of your hands, and this is very good for learning. So if I do the measure, 1, 2, and 3 units, okay? So I got it pretty good. Now, again, when an horizontal stroke meets a vertical stroke, the condition is that they overlap in the center. So still applies in here, and I'm going down straight. Excellent. Now, what happens when we have 2 T's? As in English, it's very, very common to have words like little that have 2 T's next to each other. So if this is the case, obviously this time it's gonna be a very big letter form, and I have to be estimating what's gonna happen with the 2 bars. So I have to do it by eye and see if it's long enough or no, and when am I gonna be placing it. This is the first width, and now I'm gonna be placing the first vertical. I'm gonna leave a space in the middle. I'm gonna be placing the second vertical, and I can see clearly in here that I didn't go far enough. So obviously now it's going to be super obvious, but I'm just going to push a little bit more to obtain that. And that will be how we create a ligature with one bar joining two letter forms at the same time. So for example, for the word little, we will have something like that. So if I count, let's see, I would say I have 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, 4 units, and 5 units in here. So it's a contraction because in here is 3, but by joining them, I don't have 6, I have 5. And I have a contraction of the two letter forms. Cool, last one. So letter J, I always say that letter J by definition is a long I. So it has always a lot of things in common with letter I. It's just that this is slightly longer. So I'm gonna start same as letter I. My bamboo is at 0 and I'm going down. And now before reaching the baseline, I'm starting to round towards the left-hand side, okay? In some instances, this could work as it is already. You could also do the movement. This will be obvious within a context of a word that this is a G. But normally, as I mentioned before, the G is slightly longer. It's the only letter of the alphabet that comes later on as a capital letter and is slightly longer than any other letter form. So I would, and if we go with this design, I will enlarge this design and make it slightly longer. Okay, so this is the baseline. If I'm happy with this design, what I would do is repeat this, but make it just a little bit longer. So the pen is at 0. And I will move to the left and just make the shape slightly longer. That's option 1. So it is okay if we want to work on that. Now, all these letter forms are quite wide. You see how the units and the blocks. So I like to create a J that is actually 2 units wide. So instead of being like 1 and a bit, like this is maybe 1.5 units, I would go and create something that is slightly wider and bolder so that the elbow in here is going to be much bolder. So I'm going to repeat this one, the one that finishes on the baseline. Okay. I'm starting at 0. And I'm going down. And I'm going to the left. Now, what's the next movement? My next movement is actually, I'm going to change the bamboo and I'm going to place it at 90 degrees. And I'm going to be, you see, if you do the test, 1 width and 2 widths, that's gonna give me the measure of where am I going to be placing the 90 degree. Once you know these rules, you don't have to be doing this as so precise. But at the beginning it's good because you don't feel lost. You don't feel like I'm not too sure where I'm going. You know exactly where you're going, okay? So I'm placing the pen in here in the middle. And from here, I'm pushing towards the right-hand side. And I'm starting to round and make the outskirt of this letter form soft but angular in the middle. So I have an angular counter but a soft outskirt of the letter form. And with that, I have the design of my letter J. I hope this is clear, and I hope this is giving you heaps of tools and imagination to think about how you can build the rest of the letters of the alphabet. So you will find on my website many examples of Neuland calligraphy, and I will add the link in here in this video. Thank you very much.